Hey everyone, it's Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the second part where we're going over the different types of monsters. In this video, we're going to focus on the attackers in Monster Legends. It is a very good idea for you to have a grasp of how to identify an attacker, how to effectively use an attacker, how to buff an attacker, how to get the most out of an attacker. So really quickly, the important thing about attackers for the most part is going to be their power stats. That little icon with the fist, that is a monster's power stat. Typically, if you want to identify an attacker, you can identify it because monsters that tend to be attackers, they'll have a higher power stat compared to other monsters. And a lot of times, although not usually, they'll tend to be slower. But usually the biggest indication is a high power stat, so that fist icon right there. And another way to identify attackers is by the skills themselves. So for example, if I show you this monster, who, when I look at the skill, you see that little sword icon where it says power? The stronger the skill, the more damage it'll inflict. The icon is literally almost full. And even when you read the skill set itself, it says deals massive water damage. That is indicative of an attacker. If we look at some other skills, heavy water damage, and this skill, moderate special damage. Usually AoE skills, these aren't going to be like very heavy. These are going to be moderate to heavy. But when it's a single target attack, yeah, you're going to be seeing the massive damage, the heavy, the very heavy. And we can just look through other skills. Very heavy water damage, moderate special to everyone, and then these are some other skills. So that's kind of what indicates that. Watch, let me even show you this monster. And right here, look at that damage output, deals very heavy special damage. And so that's what you're looking for when you're looking for an attacker. The other thing about attackers, which is why I have picked Erza's, is a lot of attackers can also buff themselves, or they can do something to make their attacks even stronger. So for example, this monster right here, this monster gives himself a damage boost. A damage boost makes the monster 50% stronger, the attack. Or they can give themselves double damage, which will give them literally double the damage. If they would have dealt 100k in damage, they're now going to deal 200k in damage. And there's even some monsters that can do triple damage. So these are all indications of an attacker. Let's go to Unqueue again. Unqueue, once again, Power of the Deep. This is a skill that gives them increased accuracy, a damage boost, and it blocks positive effects from being removed. So if the enemy tries to remove your damage increase, nope, they're going to remove this first, and so you keep the damage increase. So all these are examples of attackers and attacking skills. Now there is another type of an attacker, and sometimes these attackers don't have a high power stat, right? Compared to some other legendary monsters, it's not as high, but what they lack in a high power stat, they make up for in extra turns. And this is like the OG extra turn. Normally every single monster that gets released that has a skill set that you can just cycle continuously, we refer to them as the Voltic and whatever element base they are. For example, Prince Charmless came out and he's basically the nature Voltic. And there's actually a second Thunder Voltic, Zyla, she's the VIP monster. Recently a fire monster came out, Rekka, which is basically the fire Voltic. So Voltic is unique in that he can literally attack endlessly. Deals low special damage, gains an extra turn. Deals moderate thunder damage, gains an extra turn. I'm not running it right here, but I think it's 50k volts, gains one extra turn. So this monster, if you want to, you can literally cycle skills non-stop with this monster. And monsters that can do like non-stop attacks, these are the only monsters that for the runes, you want to actually give them stamina, because they need the stamina to be able to attack over and over and over again. Or you want to give them a relic where they can actually recover their stamina. But see, the Voltic, the Prince Charmless, the Zyla, the Rekka, those are like a special case of attackers, and quite honestly, those are the strongest attackers in the game. However, nowadays they are easily countered when an enemy monster has anticipation, which is this guy right here. See this trait, anticipation? If you ever fight someone that has this trait, be super careful, because anytime you do an extra turn skill, that enemy monster will get a turn in before you and they'll be able to attack you. So you gotta be smart about it. Yes, the extra turners are the super powerful monsters, but anticipation is their biggest enemy. But with that being said, I pretty much gave you the best way to identify an attacker. A high power icon right here, and a high damage output right here, the little sword icon. And on top of that, if a monster has extra turn skills, that's pretty indicative of an attacker. Another way to tell if a monster is an attacker is typically they will be able to hold the sword relic, because the sword relic is typically the relic that can dish out additional damage. Take a look at the Cane Sword. After damaging with a skill, if target's life is below 50%, deals an additional 12,000 points of special damage to all enemies. Take a look at this Jakugan Sword. After damaging with a skill, if target's life is below 50%, deals 12,325 points of physical damage. So a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, the attacker monsters tend to be able to hold the Sword Relic. And see, all these 3 monsters who are attackers can hold the Sword Relic. If I scroll and show you some other monsters, let's see if we can identify another attacker. So really quickly, just looking through. Oh look, Wasper. Look, he has Strength Runes. He's an attacker. Let's keep scrolling through. Marquis de Flambe, he is an anti-extra turn monster and he's an attacker. There's the Sword Relic. Taiga, there's the Sword Relic. So a lot of times, Barakor, he's a fantastic example. There's the Sword Relic. So a lot of times, attackers will be able to hold that Sword Relic. So that's another good indicator of it. And obviously you can tell by the runes, attackers want the Strength Runes. You want to give attackers Strength Runes because that increases their strength. Look at this, level 7 rune increases power by 78%. So attackers, since their whole purpose is to attack, they're there to dish out raw damage output. Now there's another way attackers can dish out damage, and that's with torture skills. However, I will make a whole separate video for torture dealers because yes, there are some attackers that can dish out torture effects, but then there are some monsters that focus specifically on torture, and then we can have a whole video going over all of the torture effects because there's a ton of them. So with that being said, focusing on attackers. Now to talk about how to effectively use attackers, and we're gonna go ahead and do adventure map just so I don't waste my attacks on PvP. So, and we'll start with these monsters right here. So first of all, let's identify. We'll do this later. So the reason I brought this monster right here, Zenfira, is because she actually starts the game off with a damage boost thanks to her status caster. So she starts the game off with an advantage already. But what I wanted to show you guys about this is that she has this skill right here that gives her a random hater. So let me go ahead and do that. So now I hate earth monsters. So one of the biggest ways to buff your attackers is with the haters, and there's a lot of different types of haters. So this specifically gives this monster an advantage over earth monsters. I don't think any of them are earth, nope, but if one of them was earth, I would deal triple damage against that earth monster. So quite powerful, quite powerful. This skill right here gives me triple damage. Isn't that insane? I get triple damage for 2 turns. I get precision and skill mirror. The cool thing about that, watch, let me activate it. If the enemy monster attacks me, I'm just gonna go ahead and recharge with these 2 allies. If the enemy monster attacks me, I'm gonna be reflecting, and with skill mirror specifically, I reflect everything back at the enemy. I dish out the attack, so I get the advantage right there. Viper's Gaze, look at the damage output I did. Look at that, I killed 2 of the enemy monsters. Because look at my buff, keep in mind, I gave myself damage boost because I'm at rank 1 and that's just one of my traits. And then I still have that triple damage. So super powerful. And just imagine if I gave myself the hater. And it's cool because I have skill mirror here, so I can give this skill and it'll activate twice. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see if I can maybe do my chant again and give myself a fire hater. So chant, light hater, nope. So I'm just gonna exit out and I'm gonna try again just so I can show you guys the hater in action. So I think we'll actually start off with, yeah, we'll just do chant, light hater. Okay, I believe, no, this monster is what? Magic, fire, and fire. Okay, didn't work. We'll keep trying. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to skill mirror, and this will give me time to talk about the other monsters. So I'm going to start the game off with the skill mirror. And then, so here is another attacker. And look, he actually has a trait that starts off with bleed hater. Triple damage against monsters that suffer from bleeding. So funny thing about this monster is he can actually has a skill called Soul Rip, which applies bleeding to the enemy monster. See, they have bleeding now, and it grants me an extra turn. And now that I have bleed hater, look at my attacks. Whoa, they deal way more damage. And you can always tell when an attack deals more damage because it says strong. So now I can take advantage of that from him being bleeding. And look, that was another extra turn skill. So I effectively attack the monster 3 times. And then this monster is just a powerful monster. I'm going to go ahead and buff myself. Precision, damage boost. Can't remove my positive effects. Let's see what happens. Viper's Gaze. Look, I'm going to reflect that right back at him. Bam. And in this case, I got stunned, which is fine. Bam, disempowerment. Very awesome, very powerful. Alright, let's see. Let's do chance again. And light hater. Well, it doesn't really matter because you guys already saw the hater. So hopefully, you guys are kind of seeing that. One thing I should have probably mentioned when it came to identifying an attacker, you can also typically identify a monster's strongest skills. by the higher the cooldown. That's not always the case, but Unqueue is a good example. He has a very powerful 0 cooldown skill. That's just because he's meant to counter cooldown activation and stamina drain. Now, when it comes to picking your attacker, one of the most important things you need to do is you need to be able to look at their traits and seeing when it's effective, when it's not effective. So this is a monster that's immune to control, meaning he can't be stunned, frozen, possessed, hit with corruption, the mega variations, he can't be turned to a baby, he can't get time stopped. So if you're in a situation where you scan the enemy monsters and you're like, oh, Van Decken, that monster can possess, maybe my immune to control monster would be good. That's kind of how you have to play it. Synapticus, that monster can freeze, oh, Unqueue would be a good choice. Would it be a good idea to bring Ursus? Well, yeah, I'm immune to freeze, so Synapticus can't freeze me. Oh, but Van Decken, he might possess me, but it's a good thing I have that hardened trait, so maybe I won't get possessed. So also take into consideration the traits. The traits are super valuable. Like, it's not going to be useful to bring an attacker that can easily be denied. I'm trying to think of someone. Let me see. Let me scroll down. Oh, this is Rekka. This is the monster I was talking about, who is incredible. And by the way, even though Anticipation does to an extent dominate the game, there are ways to synergize. There are ways to still make teams work, and I'll demonstrate one right now. So there's this little monster called Elvira. She's not so little, she's actually a warmaster. So Elvira allows you to start the game off with, bam, I'll go ahead and click her. She allows you to start the game off with evasion to your whole team. And if you partner that up with a monster that has the Megaton trait, which absorbs all the attacks, and I can make separate videos for all of these kinds of monsters. So let's go ahead and do the Darmin's banner, and let's just give a little extra armor. Awesome. So see, this is another monster that can hold the sword relic. So the funny thing about this monster is she can actually be an attacker. Look at that, Repent Sinner, massive light damage. But some monsters occupy more than just one area. So although Warmaster Elvira can be an attacker, she's also very supportive. Look at this skill right here. You can usually tell support skills when they don't deal any damage. Removes negative effects from all allies. That's awesome. This skill right here applies a shield, a photophobic shield to an ally. So some monsters can obviously occupy more than one role. So with this monster in particular, there's a specific mask he likes. I believe it is this one right here. And just in case things go bad, I will do the Revival Essence. So see how this monster is, well, let me show you his skill set. He has a bunch of extra turns. So this monster is an attacker, so he's going to have that Stamina Relic. And this is the only time I recommend Team Strength on Elvira, when you just want your extra turn to get some additional extra damage output. So I'll demonstrate this battle. I should be good, and I'll even do it against his Unqueue base. So this is a good example of normally you do not face a Unqueue with an extra turner because you're going to get wrecked. But because I have Elvira, I'm not really that afraid. Check this out, because the enemy literally can't do anything. Oh, I lost my evasion. What the heck happened? Why do you have all that life? Okay, so I actually kind of butchered that. That wasn't supposed to happen. Basically, if you ever do this, team, make sure your Megaton monster goes last in the turn order. Now, fortunately, I can probably absorb a lot of attacks, so it won't be too much of a problem. But let's check this out. So I'm gonna start the game off by giving myself a random hater, and it turned out to be a magic hater. Ouch, claw swipe. Nope, he OTK'd me. Oh man, so not a good showcase because I completely messed that up. And but if anything, this shows you why anticipation and extra turners are scary and why you have to watch out for them. See that? See that? Way too menacing. Okay, I completely butchered that because I didn't watch the runes on my monsters. So always, always, always watch the rune on your monsters. Let's see if I can find a Unqueue base again just to get a little redemption. Refresh, and nope, it doesn't appear so. Okay, but basically what I was gonna do is that I was going to, this monster should have had team speed, and my monster should have gone first. Sorry, team speed, and my monster should have gone first, and basically you would have seen Unqueue would have to keep attacking Tantirion and wouldn't deal any damage, and I would have been able to just attack endlessly over and over and over again. So yeah, just wanted to kind of demonstrate that, even though I didn't get to demonstrate that. But yeah, it's all about synergy. So for example, here's another good monster, Barakgor. Alright, Barakgor is a monster. Look, there's that sword relic, so you know he's an attacker. Look at his power stat, high power stats. Alright, so go to skills. Look, this skill deals damage, gives him an extra turn. This skill, pure rage, massive special damage, indicative of an attacker. This skill right here, insane special damage, massive, insane. This one is super, super strong. Look, it has a little more on the green bar. Bloodthirsty, this skill gives them triple damage. Remember I mentioned attackers typically have a skill that can buff them, or they can get some sort of buff. However, he blinds himself. Well, this monster right here, Elvira, she has a trait that actually makes the team immune to blind. So if I put these two monsters together, Barakor gets a free triple damage for 2 turns, and I'll be able to do Bestial Charge, which will have the triple damage, and then I'll be able to Bestial Hits, which will have triple damage. So it's all about synergizing, it's all about comboing like that. And yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. Attackers are pretty straightforward. They're there to attack. They are the brute strength on your team. So typically, the way you design a team, and it's always changing, the meta is always changing. One thing you can do, for example, is you can have a Megaton monster, like for example, how I had, what's his face, Centurion. Right, have Centurion there, give him some life runes, have him there to absorb, oh, I don't have life runes right now, but have him there to absorb all the attacks from the enemy. And then maybe you have 2 attackers, right? Maybe you have 2 attackers rocking a team speed and a team speed and strength. Like maybe you have this. Maybe you have 2 attackers in the background. Maybe you have them running with 3 strength, right? Maybe you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna dish out damage. As soon as I get a turn in, I'm gonna go for a OTK, a 1-turn kill. I'm gonna deal massive damage. I'm gonna knock out the enemies. Another thing you do, which is probably more common, but again, it depends on the meta. The meta is always changing. You have a monster that can go and deny the enemy, right? Episode 1, controlling the enemy, stop them from attacking, and that way your attackers can go, and then typically you'll run like a single speed on an attacker or something like that. So that's one strategy you can utilize. So when it comes to the attacker, the important thing is making sure your attacker can land an attack. And again, there's several ways to do this. For example, let's say I had... what's a good example? I think Zorky might be a good example for this. Let's say you had Zorky, right? And let's say the enemy, let's say you know for a fact the enemy can't deny you. Maybe all the enemy can do is total blind, right? So you're facing an enemy monster that does AoE total blind. Your whole team is total blinded. Well, you have Zorky go first in the turn order. Zorky can do Disappearing Coin, remove the negative effect from your attacker, and give double damage to your attacker. Then your attacker is free to go and attack. So it's all about making sure that your attacker is free of negative ailments, no blind, no accuracy reduction, no torture effects, nothing that reduces damage output. Bleed and poison, those torture effects, they reduce damage output, so you don't want any of that. Daze reduces accuracy and damage output by 25%. Major damage reduction reduces damage output. So be careful for those things. But basically, if you can cleanse that from your monsters so they're free to attack, that's awesome. Sometimes the enemy have shields, right? We saw it with Elvira. Elvira applies a shield to her teammates. Let's sort by light. Elvira can actually apply a shield to her teammates. Right here, the photophobic shield, and there's different variations. This makes it so the enemy can only be damaged by a specific element. In this case, the light element. So just be careful for those things. And I mean, it's all about just becoming familiar with what kind of things the enemy can apply on themselves to not get hit with the negative effects. Like for example, or take any damage. If the enemy has evasion, you can't target that monster. You can target the monster, but you can't land your attack. Like you're gonna miss. You're not gonna land the effect, and you're gonna miss the attack. If the enemy monster has space time, you can attack them and land effects, but they'll take no damage. If you get hit with total blind, well then you're gonna miss your attack. So a lot of this just comes like from experience, from playing and learning how everything works. But hopefully this video was a pretty good thorough explanation on how to identify attackers and how to utilize attackers. With that being said, the next thing we're going to talk about, and the very important role in Monster Legends, are the support monsters. So definitely stay tuned to see that episode. And of course, right now, remember to subscribe.